Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the channel for the paranormal side. Today I have some very frightening experiences to share with you. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's take that walk on the paranormal side. Shall we? Today's first experience on the paranormal side. This happened when I was 13 years old, spending the Christmas holidays abroad in a rural part of France. My parents are French, and I was born in France, but grew up in Canada since I was 2 years old. We spent a lot of summer and winter holidays there. I was staying with relatives of mine in their home when this occurred, which is a very old farmhouse. One particular day, my cousins and I decided to stay inside for the day because it was snowing heavily. We spent most of that day just wasting time and horsing around. A little later in the afternoon, my older cousin and I went up to the attic together because she was looking for something. I followed her because I was curious to see the attic. There was a lot of stuff up there that interested me, like old books and some antiques. Once she found what she needed, I asked her if it was okay if I stayed up here for a while to look around. She giggled and said something to the effect, "Why? There's nothing but a bunch of old crap up here. But yeah, if you want to." I spent about a half an hour walking around and looking at stuff until I happened upon some old book from the early 1800s that seemed intriguing to me because I am a literature nerd. I sat down, read it for a little while before deciding I was going to take it back to my bedroom and read it every night before bed. When I closed the book, I went to stand up and my gaze immediately shifted over to a woman who was sitting in a chair on the left side of the room. This briefly startled me at first and made me gasp because I had never seen her before. I also didn't hear her come into the attic. She was wearing very old clothing, had long blonde hair. She was quite pretty. She looked like she was somewhere between 25 to 30 years of age. She didn't look solid, though, and that's hard to explain exactly what I mean by that. She wasn't like the stereotypical Hollywoodized translucent ghost, but she had a certain opaqueness about her that tells you, on an instinctual level, that you are not looking at a living biological entity. She smiled and said to me, in French, of course, "Sorry if I scared you, dear." At this point, I didn't feel any fear or apprehension at all. This apparition radiated a kind, warm, and positive energy that I could somehow feel right to my core. I felt safe in her presence. It was a brief encounter. Around 5 seconds after she spoke, she stood up, walked about 7 feet to the right of the room, and faded away mid-stride. I just silently sat there, dumbfounded for a few minutes. When I left the attic, I was hesitant to tell anyone about what I saw, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. A few days later, I decided to privately ask my youngest cousin about it. She's 8 years old, and I figured the younger kids are usually a little more open to things like this and less judgmental than teenagers and adults. To my surprise, she was quite candid about it. When I asked her if she had ever seen a lady who appeared out of nowhere, she responded, "Do you mean the blonde lady?" When I nodded, she then said something to the effect, "Yeah, I see her sometimes. It's okay, she's nice." She told me that she'd been seeing her since she was about 5 years old. We didn't really talk much more about it, and I didn't tell anyone else what I had seen. It's something that will always vividly stick in my memory because it was so surreal, and I can still visualize her face when I close my eyes. I never did find out who she was. The fact that the farmhouse was very old would lead me to believe that she most likely lived there at one time. I don't think that all ghosts are forlorn spirits yearning for something. I've read things about some that come across as harmless and seem happy. Maybe some of them occasionally enjoy visiting places where there are a lot of fond memories for them. Today's second paranormal experience is a very frightening cryptid encounter. And, I do cryptid encounters on the earlier show, but this just does not belong on that one. It definitely belongs on this part of the program, though. It's absolutely terrifying, if you ask me. Absolutely. It took moving 1,000 miles away to finally feel comfortable enough to share this. This happened just before my senior year of high school, over a period of 3 weeks in the summer. I was 17 years old, drug-free and sober. At the most, I took Advil for headaches every now and again. I just want to assure you I was not on any mind-altering substances or long-term medication that could affect my cognitive ability. During the summer, my curfew was 11 p.m., and this occurred while driving home from my, at the time, boyfriend's house, which took roughly 15 minutes, so let's say about 10:45 at night. I was full of energy at this age and a night owl, so I was not even remotely tired. In fact, I was hyped up with the warm summer night breeze, car windows down, singing along with the radio. I took a shortcut through some back roads to avoid going into a tiny city with jerk cops. Also, one of the roads I took was super straight and flat, so I could really speed. And that feels great when you're a teenager, right? But right before that road, I had to take 2 very close turns to get into it. First, I'd take a right turn that was more than 90 degrees, almost back the way I come. Then, exactly a half a mile, I would turn left onto the long, straight road where I could really get the gas pedal down. Since it was only a half a mile, I normally didn't speed up that much because the small stretch of road was more like packed gravel and would be a waste, as I would have to slow down again to turn left onto a much better road where I could turn loose. The tiny property on the inside corner of the left turn is where all of this went down. A house that had been recently built there, 2 stories with a detached garage, and it seemed odd how quickly it had been erected. As we built our family house, it took us a year to finish it. I will start at the beginning because I believe this is all related. The first week, I am positively jamming to my music. The wind whipping through my car feels great. I'm relaxed in a very familiar drive home. I slow down to make my right turn onto the rough rural road because bebopping along when my lights illuminate something stunning sitting in the corner of the road. It's a wolf, a real wolf, a solid white real wolf. I know the difference between my dog breeds and a wolf. I love watching dog competitions, wildlife documentaries, and I have even met a 0.25% wolf in person. They look different than domesticated dogs. This was a wolf, and it was amazing, and it blew my mind. I slow down even more while I turn my music down. I'm getting close to it, and I notice that it's not minding me at all. It's sitting perfectly still in the corner of the road, staring at the house. Almost unblinking, its ears don't even seem to flicker. All its attention was focused on this house. I was so close I could have reached out my window and brushed the fur of the back of its head. I was smiling and amazed, but my mind was already churning. It made no sense for a wolf to be behaving like that, even less for there to be a white wolf in the rural northern Alabama. In that summer, I came to a complete stop behind it, marveling at its fur and presence. It felt euphoric, like I had seen something rare and blessed. My mind made a jump to the local Indian stories of animal spirit guardians, and I started to wonder. I couldn't stay, though. My mom would never believe me if I told her I was late because of my spirit wolf. With a sigh, I said goodbye to the wolf and drove home in a better mood than ever. I got to see something special, and it filled me with emotions of joy and peace. Week number 2. Driving home again, and I had been taking extra care to keep an eye out for my wolfy buddy, hoping to see him again around that area, so I drove extra slow with my window down and the radio off. That was a horrible mistake. I should have realized that the presence of this guardian meant danger. Alas, as I was on that short road approaching this new little house, then I saw the thing that to this very day makes me question my sanity, my reality, and possibility of eldritch terrors as Lovecraft described them. It was crouched right before their mailbox, its limbs folded and pulled in tight, with its hunched posture, yet its head was still taller than the box. It was molded green and black with undertones of blue, and it looked wet and slimy all over. Its head was elongated, allowing for the extended maw full of razor-sharp teeth. The upper half of its body looked emaciated, with bare, more like frog-like skin pulled over and angular long bones. Ropey muscles would hold it upright, and at the end of its grossly stretched arms were equally terribly long fingers, while its legs had bulk to them and looked equipped for running, with back-facing knees for sprinting, and tipped with raptor-like claws. It looked tall, maybe 7 feet, maybe more, just folded up into this predator posture, waiting for prey. Then there were its eyes, solid black and sunken. I still want to vomit thinking about its eyes looking at me. Then I realized it's going to look at me, it's going to see me, and there is no avoiding it. Panic, terror, unique to this alien thing, swallowed me instantly, feeling like I was tilting off the world I'd always known and into the abyss where monsters like this exist. I couldn't breathe, but I had to get my window up. Or I would be ripped by those teeth and torn with those claws. Blood would adorn the cabin of my car, and I would become an unsolved mystery. I had a manual crank window. Screw me. I had to crank my window because I was scared of crashing into water and not be able to get out of the car. But now I realized that there were far worse things in the world than crashing into water. Its head was turning towards me. I had let off the gas, but I was still getting closer to it. It made me want to scream, but I had to get my window up first, and I was cranking as hard and as fast as I could. I started to cry as I finally got my window closed, and then I put the gas pedal to the floor. Gravel road be damned. I thought I must not look at it as I pass. I must not look or make direct eye contact. I just shouldn't. It's not good to connect with these things. I've already seen too much. My tires had found grip, and I started to launch forward, passing it. In my peripheral vision, I could see it starting to unfold its limbs, and it sent a terrible chill down my spine. I'm screwed. I'm really screwed. I was mumbling through my tears as I slid around the turn, fishtailing for a moment before I rocketed down the road. I felt sick. My heart was hammering. I had snot and tears rolling down my face. My hands were shaking. I glanced in my rearview mirror, and I could only see darkness, as there were no street lamps out there. I used a trick I had learned, tapped my brakes soft enough for the light to come on. But I didn't actually slow down. Red lit up the dust that was billowing up in my wake, but amidst the swirling chaos, I thought I saw a darker shadow than the rest. A tall, thin shadow. I had enough, and I decided I was going to drive straight to the lighted roads and not let off the gas again until the rest of the way. No more looking back. I was going 109, which is as fast as I can go before my governor kicks in. I even ran a stop sign at the end of the road because I was not going to get caught by this thing if I could help it. I took a right onto the highway and flew home. I might have even been relieved to get pulled over, but I didn't. When I got home, no one was awake. I was pretty much trusted to come home on time, so I called my boyfriend and cried to him for a long time before I was able to explain. He was dismissive and thought I was pulling a joke on him. He then thought I was being crazy and seeing things. There are many reasons we didn't stay together, but his insensitivity contributed. Week number 3. I refused to take my shortcut anymore. For that reason, I would have to leave my boyfriend's house a bit earlier, and he'd be making fun about it all week. One of those days we went to the park to walk around, and on the way back he decided he wanted to drive by the house where I saw the thing. I was hysterical, begging him not to drive there, but he wouldn't be dissuaded, so as we got closer and I could not stop him, I leaned my passenger seat all the way back and pulled myself down, cowering in panic of getting near that place. I hid below the window and covered my eyes while panting heavily, reliving the traumatic night in my mind again. At one point, he stopped the car. "Spooky. You have to see this," he said. "No," I whined, resisting him pulling my arm. "No, you're really going to have to look at this," he said in a changed tone of astonishment. Tears in my eyes, I uncurled and slowly peeked over the rim of the window. The house was gone, burnt clear to the foundation with only a handful of framing beams still standing. The ground around the house was blackened in a perfect large circle. My boyfriend started to get out of the car. I shouted, "No, let's get out of here," while I grabbed his arm, but he easily avoided me and got out. He walked around the ashy piles of ruins for a bit, using a stick to poke at this and that. When he finally came back, he had this intense look of thinking on his face. There was no evidence of any personal belongings, furniture, power wiring, or even interior walls. It doesn't seem like other burnt out houses, something weird. When we got to his house, he searched for news articles about any house fires in the area. There weren't any. He called the closest fire station and quickly was brushed off by the person that answered, as they didn't know about the fire there and didn't have any time to find out before quickly hanging up on him. I never wanted to see that place again. I went out of my way to avoid the roads in the area. Talking about it still makes my chest tighten, my skin crawl, and my eyes water. My brain still has trouble because I know what I saw. A thing that is nothing like any creature known to humans, yet still I saw it. If you've heard of something that matches its description, please let me know in the comment section. This was near Moulton, Alabama. Today's third experience on the paranormal side. When I was younger, my room was on the second floor of my parents' house. It wasn't a huge house, and the second floor was only over half of the first floor. It consisted of a hallway at the top of the stairs, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom that was only accessible from either of the bedrooms. One bedroom was just a guest room and didn't get used much. My room was at the end of the hall, opposite of the top of the stairs, and to the left of my bedroom door. Inside my bedroom was a hatch that led to the attic over the remainder of the house, which I had a poster over. My buddy and I were home alone playing video games one night when my bathroom doorknob started turning back and forth by itself. Both of us were freaked out but wanted to see what it was. So we both got up and walked over to the door and opened the door to see what it was. Dead silence in the bathroom, but the door to the other bedroom was open. It was never open because I hated going into the bathroom and looking into the dark, empty guest room at night. So we were freaked out, but we go back to our video games, and about 5 minutes go by, and the poster over the hatch of the attic falls off. This poster has been there for months and was held up with tacks. The tacks remained in place, but the corners of the poster all just ripped away from the tacks. And less than a minute later, my bedroom doorknob starts turning back and forth. My buddy and I both got up again to open the door. As we opened the door, we heard loud footsteps running down the hall stairs. Too freaked out to check what happened, we closed and locked the door and didn't leave my room until morning. One other time, when I was home alone a couple of months later with my parents' old dog Buddy, I was in the kitchen making dinner. It was around 6 p.m., so the sun was just going down. All of a sudden, Buddy, who was lying by the kitchen island while I was cooking, gets up and starts losing his crap hair, standing straight up on his back, and starts running back and forth to the bottom of the stairs and back to me. Every time he got to the bottom of the stairs, he was barking, snarling toward the top. Buddy was the type of dog who, if a stranger came over or someone he didn't know, He ran up them, greet them with his tail wagging, so this was very strange to see him act like this. I later asked my older brother if he had any weird happenings upstairs. The bedroom with the attic hatch in it was his bedroom before it was mine. He told me he would regularly hear something in the attic and ended up putting his dresser in front of the hatch. We finally ended up moving eventually. Thank God for that. Today's fourth experience on the paranormal side. I've always been a non-believer. I still am, but in the last few years I've had things happen that I cannot explain. Some of them have started happening to people around me as well. Since I've been a teen, I've witnessed quite a lot of bizarre things. I think I've become so used to them that unless they're obvious, I don't notice them. For years, I've suffered from sleep paralysis. I'm a person who is extremely calm, so it got to the point where it was so frequent I started testing how fast I could snap out of it. Even if it happens, I'm usually able to snap out of it in less than 30 seconds, which it has not for some years now. I should also mention I'm an extremely light sleeper, so much so that even birds chirping combined with small sunlight will wake me up. The first time I saw what I think was a shadow person was when I was about 18, maybe 19. I was at my house alone in the middle of the night, more or less 3 in the morning. I don't really know. It was 5 years ago. I woke up with a pretty strange feeling, like I was being watched. I was trying to go back to sleep, but it felt like the thing that was watching me was now behind me, creeping closer and closer. I ignored it, even if the hairs on the back of my neck were standing straight up, until it felt like this thing was right behind me. At that point, I heard the light switch flip. I barely opened my right eye while still pretending to be asleep. When I saw the light was on, my brain released a dose of adrenaline that I don't have experienced ever again, not even close. My house is basically the only one in the neighborhood which has never been robbed or broken into, although they've tried a couple of times, and I made sure to scare them off for good. Since my room is one of the 2 easy access points, I always slept with my broken hockey sticks by my side of my bed just in case I needed them. But this time I thought that I had no time for that. In one motion, I jumped up on my bed, throwing my bed sheets over where I thought this intruder would be, just behind my back and close to the light switch. When the blankets were flying, for a split second, I saw this black silhouette of a person. It was completely black, but with clear margins. It looked like a second person, no facial features except for a white space that resembled a grin and hairs like Lisa Simpson, only longer, pointed in every direction. When I jumped up, I was basically at level where there would have been its eyes. Had any, and basing on my height, 2.02 meters, and the fact that I was still on my bed, that thing should have been at least 2.3 to 2.4 meters without counting the hair. As soon as the blankets started falling, they got in between me and it and fell on the ground like nothing was there. I was so shocked I stayed there for 20 seconds trying to process what had just happened and what I had seen. I took my hockey stick, did a full sweep of my room. All the doors and windows were locked. Went outside my room, did a full sweep of the house, and found that no door had been left unlocked, and the alarm was on and working. To this day, I have no idea what happened that night. Another encounter I had was in the middle of the night a couple years after. I was returning to my girlfriend's home at 3, maybe 4 in the morning. We were going down the road. It was a full moon night. There was plenty of great visibility. If you let your eyes adapt, you can easily drive without lights on and no street light. We were on the road, right lane. I live in Italy. And on my right, I had this huge field which sits empty most of the year because during the summer they sell lots and lots of trees and they place them to make something akin to a plant showroom. So it's neatly kept all year. I was driving down the road when I saw something really massive running down this field, coming toward the road. While passing in front of some of the spotlights that the house on the edge of the field had, It was quite taller than the first one, 2.8 to 3 meters, and it was 3D and was hella buff. Imagine a Bigfoot, only completely black with no fur, moving almost as fast as a hockey player on skates. I saw it, I fixed my eyes on it, and it seemed to notice that. It stopped in a space of 4 to 5 meters, looked towards us, and then sped the way back it had come from, at even a faster pace than before. My girlfriend was sleeping at the time, but I had to pull over because I really couldn't believe what I had just seen. I felt like I needed to cry. No idea what it could have been. Since there is no cryptids around in my country that could resemble anything like it, we made short work of them in the Middle Ages, laugh out loud. And also at the time I had no idea what a cryptid was. My girlfriend later told me when I told her what I saw that night, and we looked into it. Still have no clue of what it could have been. The last one that I want to share was not witnessed by me directly, but by my flatmate, and is the reason why I am sharing this. She had never experienced stuff like this, and it is the first time people with no prior history tells me stuff about this. Basically approached me one morning asking me what I was doing in her room. She shares it with another girl in the middle of the night. I told her that I had no clue what she's talking about and that I slept like a rock all night. She seemed quite freaked out. I asked her to tell me what happened. She told me she woke up in the middle of the night to someone standing in the middle of her room staring down at her. She said at first she thought it was the other girl was sleepwalking or standing on her bed or something, but she was out for the night and didn't come back until after we were done talking the next day. She described this figure as being pretty buff, roughly 2.5 meters tall, and she said it was completely black, and she could make it out as blacker than the rest of the room, which was pitch black as well. She said that it was pretty unsettling, so she just faked being asleep and rolled over and covered her face. Much protection indeed. As a joke, I told her she had finally met BUH. Me and my girlfriend got to call this shadow person, or whatever it is, BUH, following a strange thing that happened with the radio, but that's something for another day. And told her about the other two stories I had already just shared. She said she didn't believe it, but since she's highly suggestible, me and another flatmate decided to joke around a bit. So I told this girl that I was able to speak to BUH in a lucid dream, and it told me he would have proven her that it existed for real. The plan was to plant a photo of a guy she said kind of resembled the figure she saw in her bedroom, but we were quite obvious about it. We intended to just light up the mood and make her forget about the situation, and we all had a pretty good laugh. The day after we pranked her, though, I was the only person home playing on my PC when I heard a lot of noise coming from the bathroom. I thought nothing of it, since I know a lot of people here were clumsy and probably just left their shampoo in the shower and it fell. What had happened, though, was her entire bathroom cabinet compartment collapsed for no apparent reason, and I was the only one home for the whole day. That night I asked her what happened, and she showed me that the plastic inserts that held her stuff up on her shelf looked like they had been cut through. Apologize for the hard reading on that one. The guy is from Italy, like he said, and English isn't his first language, so anyway, it would have been easier if it was. Huh. Wow. 2022. Huh. Paranormal. You know, at the beginning of the year, like I said, before the beginning of the year, I got diagnosed with something going on that I hope will end this week. But then a hero of mine growing up, a famous ATC rider, passed away. Then a good friend of mine, who my daughter is friends with, her son passed away just recently. She died of a brain aneurysm. Last night, or yesterday morning, I found out that my landlord / friend, very good friend, passed away finally of cancer. And I'm sad about it, but I'm glad that he's no longer in pain. But then that same night, right after the interview I did, I found out that a good friend of mine who taught me how to play guitar and who would have been with us that Dogman encounter that I had he not been grounded, passed away as well. So that's 4 friends that I have had pass in 2022. Strangely enough, there was knocking in the dentist office below my house, or below my apartment, last night. When I went down there to see what was going on, there was no one down there, and it was loud knocking. My daughter heard it. She thought someone was down there. We checked the doors. We checked everywhere. My cat even heard it, and he was freaked out. So, new little boy kitten. Kittens don't really get freaked out too much. Well, he's about a yearling, but they don't get freaked out much. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's upload. I want to thank you for all your support. And may the Great Spirit watch over us, and may He guide us through this path we call life.